Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season 1 finale of Suicide Squad Isekai. Great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I want to first and foremost say I'm counting this as a season finale because the ending sets up a season 2, whether you'll get one or not. I don't know, so it could be a series finale, but for now it's being set up to be a season finale. We'll see if the show will get a second season. But either way, dude, wild season. I love the reveals. Okay, first and foremost, it didn't even cross my mind what the Enchantress situation was until they ended up saving her, and in her head, every time that the body got hurt, so did Enchantress. I was like, oh god, that's your body. I was like, right, when I look at you, you're very ethereal. You're basically stuck in an astral projection form. I was like, I'm surprised, because I thought that was just her using her powers, which makes me wonder, because I'm trying to remember when they first encountered her a couple episodes back when she was with the Thinker. I'm like, did she, because last time they encountered her, wait, I don't think she had ethereal form. I think maybe she was in her real body then. No, maybe she was her ethereal form. I could have sworn. I don't know. But that's the thing that the, as Joker calls her later on, the Skeleton Queen, like the Undead Queen or whatever, like what her situation is, like why Enchantress goes along with what she wants, because it's like, right, you have my body. So it's like, as long as you have my body, I'm like, I can't really do anything to you, because if you do something to my body, I'm going, so it's self-preservation, so... But I love that she started going ballistic, because while Rick and Clayface are rescuing her to some extent, they're like dragging her around and she's hitting her face and her body on every boulder and rock. I was like, none of them know the correlation and connection why this person looks exactly like Enchantress, but it's still kind of disrespectful that you're just, I guess, why would you have any concern for the person that's been attacking you? She could have just been her innocent twin for all you knew, but they didn't care. They weren't thinking. They were just running from a dragon. I love, once again, your boy bringing out all the tropes. He's like, oh yeah, dragons, they guard treasure. Which I never knew that was a thing about dragons mythology-wise until like more recent years. I've seen that kind of used in dragon mythology, that they typically are guarding some treasure. I never knew that was associated with dragon mythology. But he's like, yeah, I haven't seen enough movies or whatever. Oh god, there was something else he was saying that's supposed to be like kind of like a movie or isekai cliche or something like that. Luckily, they had Katana backing them up to destroy the dragon and split it in half. And it's like, cool, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And I love Clayface being like, don't worry, we'll talk about it. Like, he figured out something. And it's like, what'd you figure out? It's like, oh, she's super into me. And obviously, he's like, she's super in love with me. But Rick's like, she told you to go away. He's almost like, no, she's playing hard to get. I was like, I love that was your... I mean, I guess considering their interaction so far, like, she sliced you, like... knocked you out a couple episodes back, then you guys had your like fight last episode, so you just feel like, oh, she keeps coming back to me specifically, so we're obviously a thing. We had the Peacemaker and King Shark versus Killer Croc and his Sea Leviathan, and I felt so bad for King Shark, because he wanted that fight to be his, but Killer Croc was like, nah, he'll never beat us, type of situation. But then Peacemaker somehow got a hold of the Leviathan and was basically threatening to kill it. And somehow, we never found out how, I guess I don't know what he did, somehow he brainwashed it into killing Killer Croc, which was interesting. So I'm like, wow. So like, with the exception of Enchantress, because we never actually found out whatever happened to Enchantress. Maybe she was there at the end and I just didn't catch her. But I'm like, I don't know if she's just kicking it with the Suicide Squad by the end of the episode. But she's like the only one left, because like every other member is... Ratcatcher's dead, Thinker's dead, and now he's dead. And his Leviathan's still alive. But I don't know how Peacemaker managed to do that. I thought it was interesting too, because Killer Croc was kind of like, oh, he'll come after us. But I'm like, Killer Croc used to be human, right? Well, because King Shark, I mean, I guess it depends on what continuity. Because he's supposed to be like he's Nanaue. He's a god, isn't he? So I don't think he was ever human in this continuity. In the Flash TV show, he was a metahuman turned into a shark. But yeah, because even in the Harley Quinn cartoon, he's just legitimately a shark. You know, all the different species that exist in the DC universe and like the ocean. You know, as you see in like the Aquaman movies and stuff. But I'm like, maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it just depends on the Killer Croc lore. But I'd assume like most lore I know him as like he was a human that got turned into that, right? But maybe I'm mistaken. But maybe he's kind of like, oh, like he's long since renounced being a human. So because he made it seem like, oh, we're sea creatures, and the moment that he goes after that thing is going to come after us, like as like, oh, we're going to be like shish kebabs. That's not the exact wording he's using, but it's like he's like they'll come after us type of thing. Like we're in this together as sea beings, but. Like I said, I thought he was human. Maybe he was. Like I said, he just cast aside his human side. Anyway, it's kind of all a moot point because he got gobbled up by his companion that he trusted so much. But the thing I love about it, and I felt so bad for King Shark, is he wasn't able to win. He was like, right, me no win. You don't need a weakling like me on the team. But Peacemaker's like, yeah, I'm going to need you to get me across the shore, friend. And he's like, oh, okay. And it's like, yeah. Because he's like, yeah, he's all about, you know, friendship and stuff. And it's like, because he even said, like, right, I might not be smart, but, like, my friends are my friends, and they're smart. So, once again, power of friendship. Fuck yeah. Once again, I am a sucker for like my friends and my power. Like I talk about that all the time. I mean, come on, it's like the emphasis of so much shonen anime, and I know people get tired of it because it's such a trope, but it's a trope I never get tired of. But either way, all the while that's going down, we have Cecil pseudo seeming like he's dying. I was like, is he really just going to die from a... I mean, isn't this armor supposed to be special? But I guess he was never able to draw out the armor because I thought he was supposed to have worn this armor previously, but maybe he has, but he's never been able to draw out its real power. Maybe by dividing the armor up the way it ends up happening in the episode, maybe that's how everyone else is able to like draw upon it. Or, you know, maybe just because they're special cases, they've already kind of intertwined with some of the... like, they were already kind of special in their own regards, where Cecil might not have been necessarily special. Whatever the case may be, he's not dead. But I love that the magic armor creates some magic girl transformations. I love it. I thought we wouldn't get any more of these in the DC universe, but we got some. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's the My Adventures with Superman show. Spoilers, episode 2. Clark Kent has a magical girl transformation. That's how he gets his Superman suit initially. So I guess you could make the argument it kind of technically happens in season 2 as well, but not really. But not to the extent like it does in season 1. But yeah, I love that everyone kind of ends up inadvertently having like a magical girl transformation, each piece of armor. And it's like they look so dope and so sick. I was like, that's amazing. Especially because Harley's is probably like the most magical girl transformation. Definitely the most Sailor Moon-esque. I liked Clayface's, especially because when he was transforming, the clay like turned into like, you know, figures, and it makes sense as the actor and everything's a stage performance for him. I love that it's like, yeah, like the clay, it manifests itself as kind of his co-stars in a lot of ways. I love that Peacemaker got, I'm going to call it a gun blade, because it looks just like a gun blade from Final Fantasy VIII. So, I mean, you could be like, I mean, I feel like it needed to be longer if it was going to be like a legit bayonet, because I learned the term gun blade before I learned the term bayonet, so I will always associate that with gun blades, and like I said, it looks more like a gun blade than anything. But I do love that, like, his whole thing isn't even just like, yeah, he's good at weapons, but so much is just like his bro, like when he got enhanced, he was mainly like punching and kicking, came in with a dynamic entry, then like it did a super punch, then drew the gun afterwards. I also love that Harley's super involves her hyenas. It's like now like they just met, so I guess like maybe her hyenas don't exist in this continuity, or maybe you can think like, oh, maybe this inspires her to eventually get her hyenas when and if she eventually goes back to their world. But yeah, they became a part of her attack, and I think that's so dope, like her having them on the chains and like kind of swinging them around like that. I was like, that's so dope, because it's like, that's not all, I feel like it's a part of Harley that isn't always showcased case, it doesn't come up that often. Even in a Harley Quinn animated series, they come up very sporadically. I think there's only one in the Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of one Harley Quinn. I think there's only one of them in that movie, if I'm not mistaken. But so it's not like they're kind of tailored to Harley, but I don't think they always get utilized or come up. So it's kind of neat to kind of make them part of like her super in this. I also love that the only one who never got anything was Rick. He stayed the normal dude. I guess it kind of makes sense because he's kind of like the grounded normal dude amongst a group of weirdos and freaks in a way. The show was already balls to the wall in a lot of ways, but I love that they did wait to the finale to like really go magical balls to the wall, because it's like, I mean, that's how you like the climactic battle has to be like all badass. Like that's as anime as you can get, right? I thought it was kind of pretty neat how like the undead queen would like feed her. At one point you see her feeding her arm to the staff, and that's where like her, I mean, she regenerated it later on, I think, but it's still kind of like, oh, that's brutal and badass and metal that she has to like to gain more power and basically revitalize her undead army. She fed her own arm to the staff, so I was like, oh, that's pretty dope. But it's like, yeah, it's kind of like any boss type of situation. The mobs won't stop coming. The boss is going to keep calling the allies until you knock out the boss. So they all try to like spring towards her, but nothing they're doing is getting through. And she's kind of flinging them around. And I love Harley and the Princess Fiona like kind of having their like face to face, and it's like, oh my god, your makeup looks great. It's like, oh, you look great too. And how that plays into the ending. Because the moment we find out, like, oh my god, you could use magic too, I was like, what is Harley planning on doing with that? So when Harley gets captured by the Undead Queen, I was like, oh, that's actually Fiona, isn't it? Which I was right, but the result of how they were going about it, I didn't know what the end result was going to be. Because my initial thought was they were going to do like, I don't know if this is necessarily Final Fantasy rules. I associate it with Final Fantasy of like, when you're fighting something undead, you heal it to kill it. She did say like the only thing that could kill it is the sword that's going missing, but I was like, isn't the sword inside of Nanaue? Isn't it inside of King Shark? But I thought she was going to use her magic to heal the undead queen and that would kill her, but it's like, no, just lure her into her like false sense of security, and then summon a blade, which I'm like, just rips itself out of King Shark's stomach. Granted, luckily he has a healing factor, and then it slices through her and then like slices her head off. I was like, that's actually pretty metal and badass. But I was like, well, it's not going to end here. And then her head, like her eyes open as her head falls, and she stares at Katana and calls her the Emperor. I was like, what's that about? But Harley's like, I don't care about it, and comes in for the final blow and sends her flying off like Team Rocket with a swing and a bat. It's like, feels so poetic for that to be how it ends, and it just also feels extra poetic just because Harley's wearing that dress as the princess while she does it, so it just feels extra like, I don't know, kind of makes me think of the Suicide Squad when like Harley's making her escape, like her whole escape sequence, and that was like done in that dress that guy had gotten. You know, just it kind of gave me a little of that same flair of like, oh yeah, like doing something badass in this princess dress. And that's how it ends. I was like, oh, so that kind of ends pretty resolved. That's the end of all. I mean, it wasn't just like she hit it to the stratosphere and also exploded too. So I was like, that's pretty dope. And so it seems like, oh, it's all over. Our heroes are getting rewarded. Obviously, Fiona is now the queen. Obviously, I figured she would be the queen by the end. I just wasn't expecting her to get the throne this way. Like I said, her mom's been dead for God knows how long. But it does seem like her and Harley have bonded even more, because she called Harley called her Theo, and she's like, Theo, like, because as we know, she doesn't really have any friends. The few friends she had was when she escaped out of the castle, and how that situation all played out when she was younger, so she kept her distance from people. So Harley's kind of like the first friend she's ever really made, so that's kind of why it kind of like means a lot to her to get like, oh my god, you gave me a nickname too. Shows like how close we are. So I was wondering, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I was like, because I was looking at this, I was like, well, I mean, the credits are playing and rolling, but we're not like done with this world. They're still like opening up the whole like right sharing resources with their world. But I'm like, it doesn't seem like everything's resolved because I'm like, we still don't know what Katana's circumstances were. But then we find out the Katana that's with us is not the real Katana because Katana is back by Waller's side, and you're like, wait, what? So it makes you wonder, when did I wondered, because now I'm wondering, because Flag didn't think anything of Katana being there. So I don't know if Katana was with his group with all those other villains when they first came here, and maybe when everything went down, Flag got captured, yada yada, Katana bailed and returned to the other world, or he thought he was with Katana the whole time, and it's always been, as we find out, it's Joker, which I think is so interesting because earlier in the season in the reviews, I was like, oh, I wonder is the bad guy going to end up being Joker or something like that? But then I was like, no, I think we saw a little bit of the person and they were a woman, but I think that was just the undead queen that we saw. Yeah, but they were all pawns in Joker's game because he's just using the swords or the magic is to like, I don't know if it's just a sword specifically or his own magic, whatever the case may be, that allows him to disguise himself as other people. And he just manipulated everyone. So that's the interesting reveal. So once again, the opening endedness of this ending set up for a season 2, which is so interesting because, you know, Harley's so excited to go back to her pudding, not realizing he's here. You've crossed paths with him. In fact, he might have been the one you were clashing with, because like I said, I don't think any Katana we've seen in this world has ever been Katana. I think every time we've seen Katana in this world, it's been Joker in disguise, pulling the strings behind everything. So once again, I was kind of right, but then kind of wrong, and you know, because but it was like, yeah, it makes sense for it to be Joker the entire time. I think that is a nice reveal, and it makes sense. And they're trying to understand him, but I love that Waller's like, yeah, it's kind of a good thing we can't understand a lunatic like him, but it does beg the question, like, beyond just like the prattling off about like the chaos of it all. He was just kind of hoping to create this chaotic situation, but he's like, oh, what happens in it? Because he was saying like, right, death comes for us all. That's the one thing that the queen, the undead queen, didn't really account for. Like, none of us can escape death. It comes for us all. But he was kind of hoping like, oh, when this was all set in motion, I thought like something crazy was going to happen. But it's like, no, the end result ends up being quiet and peace, you know? So, and he's curious if coming to this world has changed Harley, like, has it scratched that itch? Because he was like, yeah, everyone has their dreams about what they want, reaching for like this world to be someone else, that, you know, and he, you know, plays a lot into him being someone else. And it's like, has Harley changed at all? Like, they've all grown, but have they really changed a lot from who they were at the beginning this season? Maybe, maybe not, but they are here heralded as heroes. I mean, because that was the big thing for them, was like, yeah, they've been tired of being told who they are by so many people, and they here got to define themselves instead of other people defining them. They got to define themselves. Yeah, we get to be bad guys, but we also get to be bad guys that are heroes sometimes. So yeah, I'm curious. Well, because it's like, I was about to say what's next for him, but it's like, well, Waller's telling Rick that he has to capture Joker, but it's like, well, the moment Harley finds out that it's Joker, I mean, who knows how this story could play out. I mean, I think the end result is going to be what you normally get for Harley's story, is where this is probably going to be a twist on the traditional, like, oh, Harley gets away from Joker story. I wonder, when did they start doing that in the comics? Because I don't think I think that, well, I mean, to be fair, it's not, once again, Harley hasn't been in the comics that long. She started in the 90s Batman animated series. That's where she first was born, and then eventually came to the comics. So she's only been in the comics for the past, I'd assume she got there some point in the 90s, during or after Batman the animated series run. So Harley's maybe been in the comics less than 30 years. So I don't know whether that's like a super secret, because I think the whole her and Ivy thing has been a super recent thing, and like was in more recent years. So I think her breaking away from the Joker is probably older than that, but still not that old of a thing in the comics. So, but this, like I said, my point of going on this whole diatribe is I feel like this might be set up for the end result, is she feels that tug and pull, because this is a Harley that's still madly in love with Joker, believes in him, would die for him, and I think that would be her journey into season 2, eventually, like, probably having to put him down if need be, and probably ultimately will have to type of situation. And that will probably be her story arc, breaking away from him and spreading her wings and finally being herself and not being defined by him anymore. I could definitely see that traditional arc of Harley's a lot of times. I could definitely see that being something that they tackle in this. If the show gets a second season, I think there's a few people who like the show. I don't know what the general reception is. I've seen people not liking the show, so I don't know if that's going to hamper it. I'm sure it comes down to viewership as well, but also reception of whether or not people are vibing with the show. I've thoroughly enjoyed the show. I thought it was great, a lot of fun, but that's just me, So I'm fingers crossed, hoping for a second season, because I'd love to see, will we get other characters, or will we just follow these characters? I mean, we'll definitely be following these characters, but I'm curious, would Katana be sent over because of the Joker of it all? And it's like, oh, why did he choose you? It's like, well, you're the one that captured Harley, so it was meant to be kind of a middle finger by running around pretending to be you. It's kind of like their belief in why he probably chose to disguise himself as her. So her kind of getting a little payback next season would be kind of interesting, and especially if her and Harley have to work on the same side, especially if it's against Joker. And the big thing then becomes, well, how long before Rick tells her they're going after Joker? How long, the quiet before the storm, where it's like before shit really gets real potentially in a season 2 of like, how long do you keep that a secret from Harley? Can you trust Harley to be objective in this situation? Absolutely not. And that's going to be a point of contention in that story, and it's probably going to drive a wedge between her and the rest of the squad because of that. So like I said, just great, a lot of fun. I'm so excited. Hopefully we do get a season 2, but at the time of me recording this, there is no news currently, so just have to keep an eye on that. So I was quite surprised, because I was wondering, I kind of had a feeling, because it just felt like this might be a one and done, but it's like, no, they're set up for more if they get the opportunity, and I hope that they do. This is animated by WIT Studio, so I'm curious, because I don't know where the process they are with the One Piece, because I'd actually kind of forgotten about that until I started seeing some news recently. So I know they're working on that, but I'm sure multiple teams. I'm sure they don't just work on one thing at a time. I'm sure they have multiple teams working on things, or maybe they do just work on one thing at a time. I don't know enough about animation studios and production companies in Japan, like how they handle their projects, especially on the anime front. So. But yeah, I've run my mouth off enough. That's really all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.